right, well, go ahead, clear the air if you like.
So I had said the Concorde traveled at almost twice the speed of light. I meant sound. So
got it.
Okay.
The first time you had said the first time you also had said the speed of the Concorde was like 280 miles an hour or something like that too. But I let that go. I like to
220 knots.
Is that what you said? Mm-hmm. Either way, I'm a believer that you just once it's said, it's been said. And, I've been married for 16 years. So after that long, you like to let things fly, right? I mean, you have to let things fly.
I can't because I get called out on it. So.
All right. Okay. Pat Becher in studio here. Good morning, Pat.
Good morning. How are you, Bill?
There's a little deja vu going on here.
There is.
And so
annual event.
I will tell you, though, that we had some property owners complaining that the water levels are very low right now.
Right.
And at the same time, they were complaining. I was getting a lot of messages with people saying, "Listen, this is you bought property on a reservoir,
right?
And which is meant to go up and down." On the other hand, the property owner saying, "Well, there was a law passed back in the '80s that said you have to consider recreation." So where are we? And are the levels really low right now?
Right now, the level is about 8 to 9 feet below normal for this time of year. Mostly because there was no snowpack this year. We all know we had almost no snow.
Right.
Usually, as the snow is melting, it'll bring it up and have it spill. It was spilling earlier in the year, but we haven't had as much rain. But the real difference, and people look at it and they say, "Geez, this is like 5 or 6 years now out of the last 8 that it's gotten a little bit low. What's going on?" And it's not really the weather. It's the biggest difference is that there's new ownership of the downstream hydroelectric plants that are below Hinckley Dam. You got a plant at Prospect, you have a plant at Trenton Falls. And for years and years, those were owned by Niagara Mohawk, and they were very forgiving. So if the water level started to get a little bit low, they could slow it down a little bit and try to preserve it.
Got it.
Niagara Mohawk, wasn't all that concerned. Now, under ownership of Brookfield Power, they're asserting their rights under their contract with the Canal Corp very aggressively, and they're saying we want every gallon we can get going through our turbines. And they look at that operating diagram that they use, and they're following it very, very carefully. And, right now, at the elevation that it's not at all a problem for the drinking supply. And the power company's getting all the water they want, but it's the recreational use that's losing out, unfortunately.
Right. Go ahead.
Is this the new normal?
Well, it depends. I mean, your guest on Friday mentioned something about what's called the FERC license. FERC is Federal Energy Regulatory Commission.
And that's coming back up, right?
That's a federal license that dictates how Brookfield Power operates, and it was under the last FERC relicensing that they established some of these rules relating to aquatics and minimum flows on the stream and everything else. When that license is up for renewal, there will be public input, public comment. And I suspect that there'll be a lot of people trying to intervene and change some
I would think so, because that's really what his issue is right now, informing people that this is your chance. It's going to come back for public comment. This is your opportunity to get out there.
Yeah, the best chance for people to really get involved is going to be when that FERC license reopens. I'm not sure the exact timetable. I think sometime in the next year and a half to 2 years is when they begin looking at it over like a 5-year period before it's renewed. Right. But that'll give people an opportunity to weigh in and see what they can do to change some of the operating procedures.
So, if I could, one of the things that Assemblyman Butler has been talking about for 2 or 3 years is that if we get a winter where there's not a lot of snow, will there be enough water for the new need, which will be the nano need? So if we're low now, and then there's this new draw, if we have another year that's similar, another winter, what will that mean?
Yeah, and certainly, his concerns are obviously very valid.
Yeah.
The answer is that there are actually 2 contracts that are in play here, and sometimes they're somewhat opposed to each other. The Canal Corporation has a contract with Brookfield Power that says we're going to provide certain flow rates based on the time of year and the elevation. They also have a contract with us that says we're going to protect the drinking supply by not letting it go below certain levels. And so that portion hasn't kicked in yet. And when it does, then you have Brookfield Power saying, well, we don't care about your contract with them. Right. We want the water. And so Brookfield is threatening to sue. And frankly, the Canal Corporation is kind of stuck in a little bit of a difficult situation. I do, however, think that there's a role for New York State to play to resolve this kind of a conflict. I have some thoughts about how that could be settled out. And, I'll be talking to people in state government to see if we can maybe work something else out that'll be a little more beneficial for us all.
So you do see then that there needs to be some change when Nano is at 100%.
Yeah, the other thing I should mention too is that in our long-range capital improvement program, we have plans to build another line from the reservoir down to our treatment plant. It's going to be a larger diameter pipe. It'll be able to carry all of our needs for water, even when the reservoir gets much lower. Right now, we need a certain elevation in there to maintain the hydraulic pressure to push the water through our plant. Once that larger line is in place, and we'll be doing that over the next couple of years, we're actually starting it this year.
Okay.
That's going to allow us to get everything we need for the drinking supply and for manufacturing, et cetera, even when the reservoir is a lot lower. That's obviously no comfort for people that want to do boating and fishing and such, but it'll certainly protect the water supply.
So this could be a difficult year then, you think, at Hinckley?
Well, the good news is the reservoir really reacts to rain, and it's almost a 400 square mile watershed. And at this point, where it is, it really only requires about 2 inches of rain to fill it back up and have it start spilling. We got some over the weekend, and I didn't take a look at it this morning, so I don't know if we got a little bump or not.
It was an odd weekend where
kind of on and off,
calling for rain, but yet you'd get a quick shower, and other areas didn't get any at all.
I know some of it went north.
I
think some of it landed in the watershed. The other problem is right now the ground is so dry that half of it gets soaked up. You don't get as much runoff from the rain as normal.
Now, one of the things that I believe that Butler had talked about is that there was another reservoir, an old reservoir. He felt that there could be an opportunity to reopen that, and where do you stand? Is that a possibility?
No,
that could be a solution.
That was the Gray Reservoir.
Reservoir.
That was built long before Hinckley was built.
Got it.
It was really just to provide a little bit of extra water for some private companies on the creek before Hinckley existed. Gray Reservoir used to flow into Hinckley, but it was empty for the last 25 years, and it only held about 4% of the amount of water that was in Hinckley, and it's all the same watershed. So if you hold back the water to keep the Gray Reservoir full, you're holding back water from Hinckley.
Got it.
And so it was all the same. It wasn't really extra water that you could introduce into the system. It was just a matter of where you trap it and hold it.
And you're still confident that the Mohawk Valley Waters will be able to handle all of the needs for here. We won't have to go outside. We won't have to go to Syracuse or anywhere else.
Yeah.
You're confident that we can handle all this?
We are. There's a lot of work we'll need to do on our end to make that happen. And if another company happens to come, then that'll trigger a whole range of improvements, including expanding our treatment plant, finishing up that line. Going to be very costly, but the good news is that the amount of water sales that would take place at that site just from those companies would more than offset the cost of building those facilities.
Can you talk about what type of a timeline? Because we keep hearing Nano's coming, it's coming, like imminent. It seemed like you were indicating that any needed upgrades when Nano comes would be down the line. Sorry for the confusion. The existing contracts that are in place right now with the Quad C building and AMS Corporation, they are coming. They've already broken ground. That's going to happen on schedule. AMS, to my understanding, wants to have product actually going out the door after the first quarter of 2018. So we're not very far off, but we can handle those existing water needs right now. It's only if another company comes and wants to build a larger plant that it would trigger all these improvements that we'd be doing. And
it'd be a nice problem to have.
It would be a great problem to have. And we're already starting some of that work now. We're not waiting. Even if another company doesn't come here for 10 years, we're still going to do that extra water line I mentioned and be able to handle water at lower reservoir levels.
Got it.
And did you say no cost to current what do you call them? Subscribers?
Customers? Our goal is to make sure that none of our existing users have to pay for those improvements in order to accommodate industrial development. And so we've very carefully looked at all those costs. We know what the rates would bring in based on expected water use. And our primary goal is to insulate all of our existing customers from rate increases. We don't want households subsidizing these businesses.
All right. Interesting stuff. So, again, good problem to have.
Good problem to have.
There's demand, but at the same time, those property owners, even down in the West Canada Creek, I think there's a lot of people that are worried.
If I can too, there's one more point I'd like to make. I heard Assemblyman Butler on Friday talk again about a need for a regional plan, and Herkimer County has been left out. And when I hear that, I can certainly empathize, because when the Canal Corporation entered into a revised agreement with Brookfield Power that actually would require Canal Corp to pay Brookfield money under certain conditions, we were not involved in that discussion one bit, and we have so much more riding on it with all of our drinking water needs and fire protection and everything else. So we know what it feels like to be left out of a conversation, But I guess, what I would say to Mr. Butler and others is that all of our plans include a reserve amount of water for all the needs down in Herkimer County should those communities want to avail themselves of that. And that's written right into our water permit with the DEC. So in some respects, there is a regional plan, or at least there's regional consideration for that, and their needs are built right into our plan.
Got it.
And then the rest of that, frankly, that Mr. Butler's calling for is pretty much beyond our ability to do anything because it's locked up in private contracts.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. And, the water has been, the lack of snow, I think, what it did to the snowmobiling industry up there this year.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Terrible. And even people who snowplow for a living and ski and everything else.
Yeah.
And now here we are looking at dry ground.
The golf courses
May.
did great over the winter.
They certainly did. People were golfing in December.
In December and January.
Crazy.
Yeah.
All right, Pat Becher, thanks so much.
Hopefully we won't see you the same time next year.
Okay, maybe next year will be the year. It's like, where's Pat been? We haven't talked to him in a while. So, okay, Pat, thanks so much. Quick break. Christine with news coming up 2 minutes away on WIBX.